We are Joycore Studio.
I'm Erica.
I'm Asha.
And I'm Josie.
And together we've been working alongside entrepreneurs from both business and NGO spaces, grassroots community members, and industry thought leaders to facilitate and empower communities to design solutions to the complex, wicked problems they face.
This podcast grew out of a desire to explore the role and effectiveness of design thinking and systems practice within those wicked problems. Over the last 3 years, a central theme of our work in one such wicked problem has been about understanding and exploring the challenge of reintegration for survivors of human trafficking and bonded labor. And this is what we'll be exploring in these episodes. Each episode in this series starts out with a conversation with our guests, and then Josie, Asha, and I spend a couple of minutes discussing what we've learned and how that applies or could apply to our work and broaden our thinking.
So we've been thinking about community transformation as a whole and what are the ingredients to that. And you shared earlier as well such important points around it's not about just the girl, it's all the young woman, it's about her whole family and that whole mindset change. And even listening to you share now about the identity piece, there is in essence a coming back to the name that was given to her by her family when she was little. And when we were kind of doing the research, one of the assumptions perhaps is that for true community transformation to happen, whatever that looks like, the young woman needs to go back to that community. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts and views on that, because when you shared the story about the coffee shop and how even the young woman being able to share about their name and then being Badi, that's not just transforming them, that's transforming the whole community. And that isn't them going back to their community necessarily to do that. That's them making change and impact from Kathmandu, from the city. And so the question, I guess, is for both of you, how important is it for young women to return to their community for community transformation? Or, yeah, can that happen through other avenues and routes, which may be safer or allow the young women to grow more in their identity?
I think it's a very important for girls to when they are that are ready to that go in the same place where like where they were get maybe trafficked, or the girls maybe they just manipulated by their own family. And then because so first of all, what I want to say is that that when it comes to by the community, so there are always challenging in the community. For my parents, I would say, like, let's say that they have no other option to survive. There is a like, so they are not educated, so or like they are not, like they are not accepted by the other communities till now. So where that they can go and maybe ask for a job, or like maybe they go and like do some household work, or maybe do some like maybe like go and apply for some good jobs, like they are still like not educated, or like they are not still accepted by the other community. And so that's the reason they have no other options to that survive daily, the every single day for the basic food, like for the daily, the dinner, lunch, and then snacks, like they have to fight for it, and they have to work really really hard, harder than other people, other normal human beings are doing. So because of that, that they have only one options, is that sometimes it's not about the parents, sometimes the girls they choose to sell themselves because of the that the situations of the family, because of the situations of the community, and that the environment that they are living, that makes them that comfortable to sell themselves, because like it's not only me are doing, it's like the other girls is doing, and that's like my relatives are doing, so everybody is doing, if they're doing the same work. And then if the one girl, if she's there and if she's not doing it, and then it's somehow, that the maybe the friendship, because of the relatives, because of the problems, will make her to work. So, but when the girls are rescued, when the girls are like capable to do something, that when they know that there's a like the selling themselves is not a only one option exists in this nation. When they know the truth of the like in their power, and when they know like that how much the power they can hold, they are holding inside of them, when they know. And I think I always recommend the girls go back to the village and then work and then empower other women. And especially like right now, I'll give you an example. There is a two sister, that they finished grade 12 from our home Nepal, and they went back to the village. And then they were like, they were very scared, because they come from the the village where the our government have literally give that area is a like red light area, the one of the small red light area in our country. So it's a nearby, it's a mura, like every day you can see like literally a small girl standing and in the road, and then selling herself. Like, I mean, you can't even imagine of that girl is like, are you sure like she's there for waiting for the customer? You will think maybe she's waiting for some like maybe some books, or like maybe she's just waiting for like school bus. You're gonna think in that way. But no, see, that girl is not waiting for the school bus. That girl is waiting for the trucks or tractor drivers. So these girls come from in that community. And I was so like feeling insecure of these girls are going, but they were just so strong enough, and they said like, no, we want to go. So, and then I make sure that that the people that who's living in that, that the sisters that who's living there, and that they're connected with us, and I call them. I said like, please make sure they are that safe in that house. And just make sure like you check every like in the evening, like they are home or not, in the morning also. And you make sure whenever they dress up, whenever they go to market, you please make sure that please call them that they're coming back like on time or not. So that much I was feeling like insecure, because I was like a parent for them, when they were here. So but these girls were like, these girls are very strong. Can you believe what they start in the village? They started giving a tuition for the other girls and for the children in the village, and now they're teaching.
Wow.
And now they are teaching the girls like who are waiting for the outside for the tractor driver or like truck drivers. And they are encouraging the little girls. And like they haven't started a business, but that they are like still, that they are still learning about the community, because there's a two different thing. They grew up in the, they were rescued when they were like little girl. And there was a like whole 10 years they were here in the hostel in the Kathmandu. And then look, they speak different language, because we speak all Nepali language, but when it comes to West Nepal and East Nepal, there is a difference, the languages. They speak different language now. They speak English, and at the same time, their dress up is different. The way they represent themselves is a different. Maybe, of course, like I have heard they, when we talk, and they tell me, last time when we are talking on the video call, they said, so, that Sapana, she told me, so, Hannah, sister, one day I felt like I take a shower in the morning, and then I put some makeup on. I felt like, that I wanted to go market and do some shopping. And then I saw the one guy was staring at me. He think that I am the one of the girls. And then he asked me how my price. And I told him that he cannot buy me. And I said, like, are you serious? You said that? And what if he tell like, that 1 crore rupees, or like 1 million, like, the rupees. And then she said like, yeah, he told me. She said like, he said that, I mean, I can give you any price. And then I said like, what did you say to him? And he said like, and I look at him from toe to head. And I said, I think our vibe doesn't match. I was like, are you serious? You said that guy. And then that girl said to him, if you want me, You come next time, you better correct yourself and your language. Because I'm not here for like selling myself. And I just have put some beauty on my, on my body and on my face, and I'm going market to do shopping. I'm not like here for sell. I'm going to buy something.
Mhm.
And she said that guy, he never come back in that village again. I think and she, the guy was Indian, and she said in Hindi. See, it was the language was. I mean, I love when someone said in Hindi. So she said, she told me, she said like, जब भी आना अपने औकात देख के आना next time. That's what she said. I was freak out. I was like, that's gonna be like a whole movie, that a movie dialogue. So it was so that that's the story is impacting in the community and so that's the reason I always want the girls, that I don't recommend everybody, but the girls who are good enough to fight and good enough to answer for those questions, and the girls who are good enough and strong enough to that say no for the like the money, and that those girls are good to go to the village and change the community. Because when mother see her daughter is behaving in different than other girls, and then definitely the father will be insecure, and then the brother will be insecure for like they will be scared of like what if she call the police,
Oh,
because they have our girls who are here, like who grew up here, that under our organization, they know the rules, regulations, law, that how government work when it comes to human trafficking and everything we teach them. So and they can say like, okay, so that's a lifetime prison, like like that if you try to sell me, if they said that word, it's enough. So
yeah.
this is how that this kind of the that a story is impacting in the community, the girls who have already that went back to the village. So that's why I always recommend the girls when it's a safe environment, and I always recommend for them to go back to the village.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for
I'll
sharing, Hannah.
just, I don't have much to add to that. I would say, there are cases where I wouldn't suggest it, but when a group, like I would really not suggest one woman going back by herself. I think she needs a community around her that's going to help support her and press forward together. I think it's a really, really hard thing for one person to do by themselves. But when the women feel strong enough and secure enough to go back, whether it's to their literal home village or to a neighboring village, it has a huge impact on that village, an impact that other people aren't going to have. And you don't necessarily have to live there, but to be able to be seen in the community, to be a presence in the community, that has a huge impact on the next generation and the previous generation, because they're like, a lot of people are stuck in the mindset that nothing ever changes. And that mindset that nothing ever changes, one day is going to be like the next day, and it just is what it is. And if you force them to see that change has happened, I think something starts to break.
I have a question, and it's probably an academic one. And I feel like as we've been doing a couple of these projects to do with anti-human trafficking, we've realized that a lot of research from Southeast Asia has been visible and accessible as compared to that from South Asia. Just to give an example, even a lot of the books have international academic publishers publish them uh, in the context of Southeast Asia as opposed to the numbers in South Asia. And so I was just curious, have you felt that? And also, if that is the case, does, I mean, just globally, does the Southeast Asian context of anti-human trafficking actually represent Asia as a whole? Yeah.
Okay, so I understand why you're saying that. There is a lot more that is published about Southeast Asia. I think there's a part of it that is representative. So the parental social demand, especially on young women, is quite common in South Asia and Southeast Asia. And I think that thread of how trafficking either first happens or gets supported because the woman feels like she has to support her parents and this is her option. Maybe she feels that way because she was initially trafficked and now she's so overcome by what's happened, she doesn't think she has other options. That's a really common story in Thailand and Southeast Asia, that there something violent occurred, but now she's in a situation where this is what she thinks is the only option. I think the pattern and story is different in South Asia, like how the initial trafficking happens is quite different, but how people get stuck, it's quite common. So I was just in a place in South Asia. There's nothing that would have prevented the women I met there from leaving the place they were. Right? There were no locked doors. There was nobody supervising. It was all social control. It was all that the women who were there had been there a long time, and their identity was so malformed at that point that they couldn't imagine being somewhere else. They hated every second they were there, but they didn't see that stepping outside this invisible circle was an option. And one of them said to me, it's because how else would I support my parents back home? Or what else am I going to do to be able to support them? And I've heard that same story in Thailand multiple times. I've heard that same story in the Philippines. So that I think is common. I think the reintegration piece is different. I think how it happens is different. But that one piece I think is common.
And so I'm just curious, do you know why there is that imbalance in terms of what is published
The
and what is
research?
out? Yes, the research.
I have a theory. My theory, this is just speculation.
Scary.
I think there's such a deep belief that nothing changes in South Asia. I don't know why it's there, but I see it everywhere I travel in South Asia. This very deep cyclical belief that whatever is, and I'm not supposed to fight against it. Maybe it's actually wrong to fight against it. But I just have to exist in whatever this is. And it's interesting to me because you see a little bit of it in Myanmar, a little bit, but it's not the same. Right? That's a country where there have been almost 80 years at this point of civil war. And you will meet 15-year-olds who don't know anything but war in their life. There's nothing but instability. They don't know how to dream. They don't have like the same words come out of their mouth that I've heard from teenagers in Hannah's village. And yet, they don't know how to dream. They have a sense that life can be different. They don't know how to get there. They don't even really think it's for them. But there's a concept that somehow culturally exists there, that different is possible. Maybe in a different lifetime, but different is possible. And I don't encounter that in South Asia. And I think without that sense that there can be change, why would you research change?
Yeah, that's true. Because even, especially the reintegration bit, like you said, there's barely anything from the South Asian context. And in fact, even from that point of view, when you think of even the idea of freedom businesses, right? Like we went for a conference, even in that regard, the representation from South Asia was bare minimum again, but you had so much from Southeast Asia. Uh, so yeah, this is just something that we've been trying to wrap our brains around and trying to figure out um, why that is the case. Yeah, it's. Mm,
I mean, it's interesting too. I used to think it was because, so much academic research happens in English.
mm,
And so many people from Southeast Asia end up with English educations for a variety of reasons. But that doesn't really explain things because a lot of Indian education is in English.
yeah.
If it were just Nepal, okay, maybe that's an explanation, but that doesn't explain India.
Mm,
Like, why don't Indian researchers have an interest in this?
mm,
And I think it is because there's an element of it being countercultural in a way that there just isn't in Southeast Asia, right? I think there's a challenge to society in South Asia. Like the idea of people changing their identities and changing the cultural identities is countercultural in South Asia, and it's not in Southeast Asia.
mm. I think it goes back to what you and Hannah, in fact, earlier were talking about the generational issue, right? Because you feel like this has been going on for years, I mean, generations together. And me as one individual, what can I do about it? I think it always, I think that's something everyone battles with in this context. Um, yeah, yeah.
So I heard something the last time I was in India, and it's okay if you need to cut this this phrase out of the podcast. I'm just going to label that right there. Somebody said to me in India that the reason why this particular slum red light district persists was because there was a belief that if we take away this particular area, that the high caste daughters, wives, whomever, are now at risk, right? We're making a provision for a certain amount of, I don't know what you want to call it, but perverse lust. And we're going to try to contain it by having this place that's going to be the container for it. And we may not like it and we might think it's not great, but it's better to have it in this place than to have it affect our daughters. And so I think in some places, there's a sense that we are going to allow this thing to exist. We might even encourage it to exist because there's a worse thing that they're afraid of. And it's cultural. It's, in my mind, it's cultural. And so people are like, well, if we allow this to change, what happens to us?
Yeah, we actually had someone share in another project we were doing exactly that pretty much as well. That I think what did they say? They said having the red light area there means that I'm safer. And that was a perspective that we hadn't heard before and didn't come across. But it appears that that's.
I've also heard it in bonded labor situations, right? I've heard people say, look, this group of people, these bonded laborers, need to exist in order for my business to be able to be profitable. But I mean, that's not different than the things that people wrote about in the United States in the 1700s, right? It's wrong, but it's hard, right? Because it involves the whole society being willing to say, look, I'm going to sacrifice my luxurious lifestyle that's built on the backs of other people.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Kristen. It's a good perspective to think through, and yeah. I have a last closing question for both of you. So when you think of policy or community mindset or economics, or any other part of the system, if you could just move one thing or change one thing within this entire system, what do you think would create the biggest impact?
So I would like, that's just, I used to talk about always about Badi community. That I always talk about like Badi community, like need like, the human rights and lots of other things. We need opportunities. We need that. But I literally nowadays I finally figure it out. The problem that our community, the community, our community and the Badi community, and especially women, like all the women are like having, and that all the problems, it's not about the only the Badi communities women's are having. It's all about like, I think the whole nation, our countries, all the women and the girls are having same issues when it comes to that leading something, like, or making a decision. Like even the women's are, I would say, like, I write on my social media also last time, and I literally write my heart. And I got a phone calls from the, that the sister, like, I mean, she's a municipality, that is, she take care of the women's and children ministry. She called me and she said, you just share my heart. And then every woman that we are suffering this, it means she is like the in the position where she make a decision for the other woman,
Yeah.
for other girls, but still she is suffering. She's struggling to make her own decision.
Mm.
It means like she is waiting for some other girl or other women to raise that the voice. So that's the reason I think, and my that if I got an opportunity to change one thing, in our nation, and especially when it comes to decision making, I think the women's need to have a. But our government said like we have a 33% like right to make a decision, but it is. I felt like it is only on a paper, and when it comes to holding the like a property, when it comes to that. When it comes to money, when it comes to making decision, when it comes to like that leading like a big offices, even though if you see like if you check in our country like the bankers, like in the bank, when it comes to handling money in a big position, you're not gonna see one woman like in a that good position. They are a manager, like they're just a manager, because they think the women's are like really good when it comes to managing things, because they're good on like managing kitchen, they're good on managing house, they're good on like the money that their husband gives, and they're good on managing that money that given by husband. So they are like their position is like that they're separated, like you only can be that a manager. So for the first time in our country that we have a female prime minister of Nepal, first time in the history of Nepal, right? You can see the people, the man are like the man they call themselves, like they are targeting her every single day of saying, oh, that the woman, like she wear a sari, she wear a sari. It's very hard for her to take care of her sari. How's she gonna take care of the country? Can you believe their mindset? Like, I mean, it's not about clothing, it's about her leadership, her, that the she have that, that I would say like a gift, that I think she was born with it, the to be a leader. And that's why she's in a position, that's why she's a better than other man. That's why all the men are like set aside and she is in that position. So that's why that I would, change that one policy of saying like 50-50% rights, not a 33.
Yeah. Wow.
Because there's why 33, why not 50, why not that hold a 50% of that authorities to make a decision, and then why not the women also have a 50% of authority to make a like same decision. Let's do 50-50 and then make 100%, and then our country will be great. And then all the things comes like when it comes to like making decision, when the women they start having like 50% right to make a decision, and then human trafficking, and then lots of things will be better in our nation. That's what I felt, and I'll change that. And I think I'm gonna do it in someday. So
I think
50,
you are too.
Go, Hannah.
yes, 50-50.
Uh,
Not
so
30.
yeah, why not 70-30?
Yeah.
Why not flip it?
Yes.
I think for me, I'm not as optimistic as Hannah. Well, just generally, I'm not as optimistic as Hannah because Hannah has a wonderful optimism, and I wasn't born with that. But for me, changing policy doesn't usually change people's hearts. At least that's the history in the United States around issues that are quite similar. But economics can. And I think that people do respond to incentives at some point. So what I would propose is, if I could change one thing, I would start a venture capital fund for South Asia that would provide capital that has not been easily accessed by women and marginalized communities. Like they just don't have access to funds that would allow them to create and explore businesses. And so that's what I would do. I would start a venture capital fund that had very particular beneficiaries in mind to fund the building of dreams. And part of that would actually be an internship program that would take people somewhere between 15 and 23 on a journey of self-discovery where they are exposed to dreams that other people have explored. Not as a way of saying, here, you should also be a dairy farmer or a tailor or whatever. But look, this person started to explore a problem in their community. They came up with a business that solves a problem in their community. This is how they did it. There's some skills that you need to learn about accounting or administration and you don't have to learn everything. Like you can surround yourself with people who have those skills. But this is what successful transformational business looks like. And go on a 2-year journey where you're spending 2 months here and 3 months there and 5 months there with a guide who helps you integrate body, heart, mind, and soul to find your own central purpose. Like, what was the thing you were made for? And then provides this venture capital to go back at some point and support you doing it as close to your home as is comfortable. There you go. That's what I would do if I had all the money.
Spoken as a true economics student.
That's true.
I know, and that's so powerful. I think if you had that, if you change that, I don't have to look for a 50%.
But Hannah,
Yeah.
that decision was made by a woman again. So I think you
I
still
know,
need that.
like, and then also I think if that if that changes, and then I would just ask like, okay, I don't need 50, I need 100%. So I want 100%, not 50%. So
I mean, I'm thinking about it like Hannah's Village. The first time I went to Hannah's Village, I think it was like 2016 maybe. And it was a real eye-opener, right? That was a thing where when I went there, the women were doing all the work. And I mean hard physical labor of digging sand out of a river. They let me try it and they laughed at me because I was so bad at it. It was hard. work. And the men were all just sitting around,
Yeah.
drinking,
Smoking.
playing, smoking, right? They were doing nothing.
Mm.
But that community, when you go back now, at least some of the men are working alongside their wives, right?
Yes.
You see it, right? That community has started to change. And I think part of that is from women discovering the power of their own voices. And a lot of that has to do with Hannah, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, my father, I'll say, I don't give other people example. I just give my example is enough, I think. My father, he was also like a similar, like other body, like regular body man, right? And my mom, we were like seven kids. My mom, I still remember when my sister, like Santi, my mom was pregnant with her, and then it's a 9 month pregnant, right? So they never count the days, right? They don't know when they're gonna have a, like that birthday, like something. So I still remember she had a like huge belly, and then the river was like this much, that all the whole, the where they dig all the, that I don't know what's called that, digging sand,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
from the
Digging
river,
sand.
and her half of the body like this is under the water, and her hair is only the outside of the like water, and she was just collecting sand in the like on the plate, and she used to give it to us, and we used to put on our head and go and that put that sand on a safe place, because the flood is comes every single time.
Mhm.
And then I remember when she gave a birth, she went that outside of that our house, she come with a baby. I said, what is this?
Oh,
And my,
bro.
my father have no idea like anything. But now, like look now, my mom have pig farm,
Mm.
you know. So she have a job description now. Like her job is to like clean in the pig farm. And my father, because that she have like he need to, because my mom have give all the buckets in the like the people's house to collect all the the garbage they put on that bucket, and that need to collect all the garbage, like all the wasted food. So she gave that job to my father, and he feel embarrassed, like I don't want to go and collect food, that garbage from other people's house. And my mom said, if you don't bring it, you're not gonna have food tonight to eat.
Oh,
So they fight every single day, and my dad, he have to work. Now he's doing it, and then my mom has like literally pig farm, and then she have separate the job, and this is the also like the changing, and then now women's are like forcing men to work.
yeah.
And then that's also like that I'm grateful for the venture that's happens because of the venture. They have changed the mindset of the people, that so I think this it's working, and it's working in the community now.
Hmm. Wow. Thanks for sharing, Hannah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Hannah actually just said something that reminds me of another cultural thing that I think is really different between South Asia and Southeast Asia. Like
Yeah.
that the counting of days
Mhm.
is a very foreign concept in some parts of South Asia. Time is not always linear. Like it certainly was not linear in Hannah's village. Right? You don't count that way. And if you don't count that way, there are a lot of things that can't happen. It's in some ways Western to count linearly days. And I think if you don't do that, it's outside of the realm of Western concept academic research.
Hmm.
And I wonder if that's part of it.
Oh, wow. Didn't think of that. Okay. Hmm.
Time is really strange. I mean, it's not strange. Time is just so different culturally, and it does change how you think about things.
Mm.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
You both have shared such incredible stories and wisdom and insights that we're going to have a lot to reflect on and process. as is the listener. But thank you so much. You're both truly incredible people in the way that you approach the work that you do, why you do it, where you've come from, where you're going. And it's been such a joy and honor to get to know you through work and through projects and become friends as well. And so it's been, yeah, very precious. So thank you both for your time and chat soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
So, taking a moment to sit with what we just heard, here is the team's reflection.
Asha, I did want to ask you about what you thought about Kristen's ideas around the academia dynamic with the lack of research being present in South Asia versus Southeast Asia. Because I thought there was some very, I mean, I hadn't thought about some of the solutions, well, some of the reasons she posed. And one of them was around that theory that there's such a deep belief that nothing changes in South Asia. And whatever it is, people just have to kind of exist with it. And for the listener's perspective, Ash has spent quite a lot of time in higher education. And so, yeah, I was keen. Did you have any thoughts around some of her responses to that?
I think that was, I didn't think of it from that perspective. I think my mind was more in terms of business of of why this is not being published by the big publishing houses, which makes access easier. But I think thinking of it from a cultural point of view, I agree that the mindset does exist in a South Asian context of people just resigning to the fact that nothing is ever going to change. But at the same time, for some reason, I would assume it's also an Asian mindset. I could be so wrong on that, but I didn't think of it as a big contrast between South Asia and Southeast Asia, honestly speaking. So for me, it was very new information,
Mm.
uh, but at the same time, quite interesting that it would have an effect on publishing houses as well.
Mm.
Yeah, and those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I guess publishing houses and then also whether people want to actually do the research within South Asia in the academic setting.
Because another thing I was thinking is also it requires a lot of money to gather the data for this on your own. So if your country isn't giving out consistent
Mm.
data on that front, for you to do it, it takes a lot of effort, time, energy. So for me, I was also thinking along those lines, like it's just,
Yeah, it might be that the opportunities aren't even there. They're not being
yeah,
embraced by universities or
yeah,
institutions with
yeah,
funding assigned.
Yeah. I wonder if there's
yeah,
also some level of people not even wanting to research because of just the stigma attached to it as well. And just,
Mm.
the why choose to do that when you can choose to do other bits of research?
Yeah.
I don't know.
or another controversial one would be even the money attached to it, right? Not necessarily money in terms of gathering data, but the money that goes into the business of, because
Mm.
it is considered a business at the end of the day. So with
Yeah.
that big money, there are also, yeah, there's a lot of power attached to it as well. So
Yeah.
it is dangerous from that perspective as well. It was just another angle that I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, I hadn't quite thought about it from that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think from some of the research we did a couple of years ago, after arms trafficking, human trafficking is the next most money-making business. So
I love how that theme of community transformation is kind of so recurrent in and has been recurrent in this in these episodes. Um, yeah,
Again, that story about the market, about the woman in the market, and even just the going back to the first episode about the girls in the coffee shop. It was like all of the stories that Hannah shared, there was this element of kind of sass. I
yeah,
think that's what Hannah used to describe it, in the way that these young women defended and contextualized themselves within that setting, which I thought was just so brilliant. Um,
yeah,
really brilliant.
I think another thing that came to my mind, probably a mix of last episode and this, is also when it comes to reintegration, and not just reintegration, any wicked problem, right? Like when we go in, we have these plans in mind, like there's a rigid way of doing things. But that story of that 15-year-old girl who was rescued and all she wanted to do was sleep. And sometimes I was like, it's just like, it's crazy how when you think of it, you walk in with these big plans, and then it's like when to the core of it, it's these very basic things that make a huge difference in their lives.
yeah.
I mean, just things that as outsiders and people who, of course, who've never had that experience would never
Think about.
think about. Exactly. And so even, yeah, it just changes your posture
Yeah, yeah. I
when you think of,
definitely, yeah,
yeah.
I definitely felt my heart getting a bit like feeling so soft in that moment of just like,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Mm.
that girl that just wanted to sleep
Yeah.
or have a good night's sleep. That, yeah,
And even the reason why she hadn't slept for 2 years, and like the reason why she did sleep that night was just because the doors and windows were shut.
uh,
And again, that very simple act of that safety and being secure. And I think we touched on that in the last episode around, being able to dream. It requires perhaps being in a place of safety for that to happen,
yeah,
and to let your mind feel at peace so that it can take these different routes. It's a big thing, underestimated thing.
It also humbles you in so many ways, right?
Mm.
In the sense of just, yeah, just, and going back to something that we've heard time and again is this: listen, right? Don't walk in with big ideas, just listen.
yeah,
And you think you need to do something huge, and all you need to do is close the door and let them sleep.
yep,
Um, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the response could have been this kind of huge celebration, or like a party, or like new clothes, or showering with gifts, anything, but it would have not been what was needed in that moment
yeah,
necessarily.
Mm.
I think this work, the more that I listen to the privilege of being able to be in spaces where we get to work with people like Hannah and Kristen and all of the other guests that we've got on the podcast this series, is sometimes people ask me about the weight of some of the issues and challenges that we explore in studio. And spending 3 years, the last 3 years, in the midst of the challenge of human trafficking or bonded labor is not light. But at the same time, it, for me anyway, it just builds this gratitude, like this sense of gratitude in me for, yeah, what I have and where I am and what I get to do. And the, I guess the exposure I have to both the good and the bad. Like you can dive into the statistics and you can hear the most heart-wrenching stories, but then you also get to experience these moments of community transformation that Hannah talks about and that Kristen talks about and that the other guests talk about. And it builds this kind of hope, I think, within you that it's not easy, but there are incredible people in places, in rural places, in hard to reach places all over the world who are doing this type of work and are seeing difference and change and movement with these issues and these problems. And we can look at it from a systems level, or you can look at it from, say, a world global perspective. But then I think when you get down into the micro, when you get down to the grassroots and you actually see the individual things happening and those
Here,
stories,
yeah.
yeah, that's when you're like, okay, that's hopeful and that is inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. I think that reminds me of the term that we thought of, or that came up in one of our projects, bursts of flourishing. And I think that is so applicable to this in some ways as well, because it's one burst that leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. And it's just a chain reaction. And yeah. And you're right. I think when you think about issues on a global world level, I feel like that can bring so much of the cynicism in. But experiencing, and not even experiencing, just hearing some of the stuff that's happening in an individual person's life is so hopeful and has a lot more impact than thinking of challenges on a global scale.
Yeah. Even Hannah's dream of becoming Prime Minister, which I think she did mention in the podcast, Hannah as Prime Minister would be so much richer because of her experience of knowing how to work with people on the ground and the day-to-day and life experience of where she's come from and the skills that she's built and her natural character to be able to also, and Asha, you've spoken to me a bit about this from your experience of working and analyzing policy, but to be able to make policy whilst also understanding how that policy will affect the people that it's written for, which is so much what we talk about with design thinking, is when you're looking at solutions, to be able to create solutions with the people that are going to be experiencing and activating those solutions is such a much more resilient way of working. And it's the same with policy, I guess. Like, so one of the big challenges of that system is that often the people creating the policy have never experienced the realities or even heard or listened, that word listening, which keeps coming back, to the stories and realities of people on the ground.
And the irony that you make a policy without involving a good number of the people that the policy is meant for, right? Because you think you know better. Goes back to lack of listening. Because it's usually the people in the rural that are closer to nature that eventually are the people who suffer the most when it comes to
Mm.
a lot of your grassroots level policies, right? So, yeah.
And even Kristen spoke to that a bit. She said changing policy doesn't usually change people's hearts, but economics can. And if we got some more time with Kristen, I would love to double click on that statement and dig into that deeper. But she said it within the context of exploring how a venture capital fund for people who don't usually have access to the funds could be her dream next step if she was going to change one thing in the system.
So the question we want to leave you with today is, what are the things that you hold close to your identity? And what has that journey been like for you to get to a place where you feel comfortable with it? Let us know. Yeah, and we'll see you in the next episode.